the tax parcels he mentioned, where the current FLU designation, future land use designation, and the comp plan is PI, planned industrial. What we're proposing is to take that to Res 1, and the current zoning is PIP, and we're proposing to take that to RR1. If you look at the maps, the surrounding lots are all Res 1 and RR1. This industrial zoning is kind of left over from a long time ago. It doesn't fit anymore, and the LH just want to do 2 flag lots on this property, which we can't do until we go through this zoning process. So I have pictures if you'd like to see them. I don't know if you have pictures in your packet or not.
I think Miss Jennifer just give us a picture.
Okay.
Yes.
But it's as simple as that. We're simply proposing to
Clean
take
it up.
something that we don't think is compatible and make it compatible so they can do their 2 larger flag lots.
Okay, as you stand there, does anybody in the audience want to speak for or against this item? Okay, seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Just a question for staff. What was North Merritt Island's decision on this?
I can answer that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you had to say. Yeah, they recommended approval for it.
All right, thank you.
That's in the minutes.
All right, I suppose I'll make a motion here. I believe that planned industrial is not considered appropriate for this location, and I'm going to make a motion to approve H1 as written.
I'd second it.
A motion by Pete on item H1, a second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the item H1 is for the small scale, which is PIP to Res 1. That was your motion to recommend approval to Res 1, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then there's a second item with that too for the zoning,
Yes, that'd be H2.
and that was PIP to RR1, correct?
I don't think we had a motion on H2
Yeah,
yet.
Okay,
We did just H1.
just want, okay.
I thought that
Yeah,
was companion.
Okay,
I just want to make sure what I heard and what,
okay,
so I'll need to have a motion for H2.
correct.
I'll also make the motion for H2 to approve from PIP to RR1.
I'll second that.
A motion by Pete on item H2, a second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay. Oh, sorry. Aye. Apologies.
Thank you for your time.
That passed unanimously. Okay, item H3.
Mr. Chair, if you just give us a second, we're just switching out staff.
Item H3, Joseph A. Calderon requests change of zoning classification from TR3 to TR1A. That's tax account 2315419.
Is the applicant here? Sir, if you could come to the podium, state your name and address for the record. If you could get close to that microphone.
Yeah, it's Joseph Calderon, and it's 637 Orange Court, Rockledge, 32955.
And a little bit about what you're wanting to do here.
Well, as he says, this property, which when it was cut out years ago, was never addressed to be rezoned. And when I bought the property recently and had thought it was buildable in its size and found out later it wasn't, so I'm here to request that it be zoned so it's sized properly to build on, and it has one variance request, which was done to take care of one setback problem with the property, which it'll meet with that variance approval. So.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience would like to speak for or against this item? Seeing that, I bring it back to the board. Anybody have any questions for the applicant?
No, Mr. Chair, this looks like a pretty simple item to me. And the zoning is actually going to be much less intense, in my opinion, so something I'd be in favor of. Are you wanting a motion?
Please, sir.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I will move forward to motion approval or recommend approval of H3.
I'd
Okay.
second it.
We got a motion by Ben on item H3, a second by Joe. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passed unanimously. All right, thank you, sir. Item H4.
Mr. Chair, this is, item H4 is the comprehensive plan text amendment to include a property rights element as required by House Bill 59, requiring all local governments to create a property rights element. For those of you who have been watching what the Florida legislature did back in July, this is a direct result of including language that protects people's property rights. And so in the agenda report, there are a list of new language that's going to be adopted if the Board of County Commissioners recommends transmitting up to DEO for that. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Anyone on the board have any questions for him?
Yes, I do.
Yes, sir. Mr. Ron.
This seems to me to be another restriction on our home rule authority, which the state legislature has been doing for many years now. And this seems to be just another one of those attacks on our home rule. One thing I would ask for this board is this going to mean that we have to give the developer or the owner of the property more consideration than we do to the neighbors who might oppose the development of such property? Can one of the staff answer that?
Mr. Berkshire, I'll take a stab at it. If you look in your packet, there's the policy 1.1. It lists out 4 basic policy, or I should say additions to that. In my opinion, it's just those 4 items are what we already do. It's just is adding that as part of our comprehensive plan amendment.
I agree with that statement. Does anyone of the staff know why or which county this might be aimed towards?
I don't know, what why the Florida legislature did that. I can tell you that it was on the docket last year and was not passed into law.
Okay.
So this is having a ripple effect for us because DEO is requiring the county to adopt this language before we send up any comprehensive plan amendments for the review. And so this is curtailing any large scale that's been waiting for adoption or any small scales.
This does address property rights, and I, think it's a good thing to put that in there. But I'm concerned that some of our lawyers for the developers are going to come forward and say, well, you've put that in your comprehensive plan, therefore it should be given higher priority. And because of that, I would like to see us have a 5th statement in there and add a paragraph E that talks about that Brevard County also recognizes that planning and development decisions affect not only the property owner, but the neighbors as well, and that the neighbors would have a right to participate in any of that discussion. Now, I know that's what we do, but I just have a feeling, frankly, I just don't trust the state government because of the way they've been treating us.
And quite honestly, as far as the neighboring properties, this element is statutorily mandated, so we use the language which the state provided. As far as recommending additional language regarding the neighbors, this is really for the private property rights those, of the owners, I imagine is what we're looking at. It talks about the right of the property owner to physically possess and control his or her interests. So to tack on additional language about the neighboring properties, I'm not sure how DEO's review of that would be or what their interpretation of that. So we went with what was actually in the statute, which we are required to adopt some kind of element, and they had provided some sample language, and we went with that. I mean, obviously,
Yeah,
this board can make that
They provided some sample
recommendation.
language that we can adopt, or we can create our own language, as long as our own language does not conflict with their language.
That is correct. That is absolutely correct. So if you want to make that recommendation, you can, just pointing out that the language that we currently have, that we use from the state statute, really is directed to property. The property owner didn't reference neighboring properties per se.
Okay. Well, I would like to make a motion that we adopt this with one additional statement that addresses the rights of neighbors of property owners to participate in the decisions, so that people who are, affected people can participate in that discussion. I know that's what we do, and I don't see that this would negate that, but I am concerned. And I would just like to say, if we're going to talk about that, then I think we ought to talk about the rest of the affected people.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just to address that point of the language coming from us. And I just wanted to give us some fair warning that whatever we request, it has to be in the form of request because the final decision rests on the commissioners.
Correct.
Correct.
Mr.
So
Chairman.
we don't get ahead of ourselves stating what we want when we could say what we want, but there's 5 commissioners that sit up here that decide the final language.
They have the last decision, correct.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes.
As a recommended body, I do agree with Ron, and we should probably hash out now what that option E should be and make it, black and white and not,
Yeah,
round around the
I
edges.
apologize because I had written some language down and I intended to print it out and bring it up here. And I got here and I realized I hadn't done that.
I'm willing to work with you on that if this board is. So I'd like to introduce an item E to bring to the county commissioners, and then they can hash it out too. So I don't know if using the word neighbor would be appropriate.
The real language I'd like to see is affected person.
Okay. I think that would.
That way anyone that's affected can participate in and be a party to any hearing on any development decision. And that the affected person could be a local government that will suffer an adverse effect to an interest protected or furthered by this comprehensive plan, including interests related to health, safety, police, fire, service systems, density, intensity of development, transportation, healthcare, equipment, services, environmental, natural resources. I think that covers everything.
I would agree, sir.
I think you should, as we're changing the language, I think we have deputy or assistant county attorney ask for his opinion in regards to the language changing. Possible.
So actually, I was reviewing this for this particular meeting, and as far as the language, are you reading that from a particular statute, or?
No, not from a statute. This was some language that I saw off the internet, actually.
Okay.
And they had a whole, I don't know, many, many pages of it.
So I had written down from the prior discussion that your recommendation was Brevard County shall consider as part of the planning and development decision-making process affected property owners and neighbors as well. Is what I had written down as your initial request to add on as an additional element in the property rights
Well,
element.
What I think affected person is probably a better choice than neighbors, because it may, the immediate neighbors may not be the only ones affected by that decision.
What happens if we add the word adjacent? Because when you say affected or neighbors, that can get very subjective as far as whether or not they're affected or not. So I'm just trying to nail down, neighbors meaning what and how far away they are.
The reason I was using affected parties is frequently we will have an issue come before us, and the property owner who owns property that's adjacent to the development property is only one of the members of that residential group, and the entire residential group are the ones that are really opposed to it. And so if we limit it to say it's only going to be the people who are adjacent, then we've just locked out the other, 100 or 200 people that live in that area, and it would be affected by that property decision. I know affected property is subjective, but I would like to, that's what I would like to see in there is affected person, and leave it up to the county commission if they would like to change something like that.
I mean, if that's your motion, then we can address your motion, see if you have a vote and a second on that, and it will go up to the Board of County Commissioners for consideration.
Okay. I was trying to put that in the form of a motion. Would you like me to read that text again, or?
If you wouldn't mind, just so it's crystal.
Okay. Adding a paragraph E to this element. Brevard County recognizes that planning and development decisions affect complex systems and have impacts that occur beyond site development. Any affected person may participate in and be a party to a hearing on a planning and development decision. An affected person is any person or local government that will suffer adverse effect to an interest protected or furthered by this comprehensive plan, including interest related to health, safety, police, fire, service systems, density, intensity of development, transportation facilities, healthcare facilities, equipment, services, environmental, or natural resources. That's it.
Thank you, sir. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Ron with what he had just stated. I can't remember it all, Ron, sorry. And we got a second by Pete. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That motion passed.
Okay.
And before we adjourn, Miss Abby, you have an announcement.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to let you know, this is my last meeting with this board. I am handing over the reins to Mr. Alex SS., who is across the room from me. He has been with the county attorney's office. He started as an intern in 2015. He's worked his way up, and I believe you'll be in very good hands going forward. So I just wanted to introduce him today, so you'll see a new face at your next meeting.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
All right, any other announcements? Meeting is adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.